Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Being Innovative During This Different Time in History webinar, brought to you by MFA and Multiwood in conjunction with Jamal Sahib. We're going to allow just 5 minutes for the last stragglers to join the webinar. So we'll start promptly at 5 minutes past 10. Please do have pen and paper available to take down any learnings from this session. And please do feel free to ask any questions in the question section on the webinar panel. Please also do feel free to chat if you have any contributions to make during the session. And we look forward to welcoming Yusuf Bucks towards the end of the session. We'll also have a question and answer time during that time. So we look forward to spending the next hour and a half with you. We're going to just give Jamal and the rest of the attendees 4 minutes time to join the session. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Being Innovative During This Different Time in History webinar, presented by Jamal Sahib, as well as MFA and Multiwood. My name is Clayton Campbell, and it gives me great privilege to welcome Jamal Sahib, author, entrepreneur, business coach, to present to you this morning on being innovative during this different time in history. Please do have pen and paper available, and please do feel free to ask questions during the session. Your questions will be fielded and responded to during a question and answer session together with Yusuf Bucks at the end of the presentation. Jamal, thank you very much. Over to you.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum, Sawubona, and welcome everybody. Thank you, Clayton. Clayton Campbell is the owner of a company called On Site Group, and On Site Group is a coaching client of mine. and I am a client of OnSite in the IT space. So they host all of our webinars and do a brilliant job of that, amongst other things like integrate Apple devices and stuff for us. So welcome everybody. Thanks, Clayton. We're looking forward to a good session this morning. We're spending probably about an hour or so together this morning. Many of you have worked with me in some way or form before. I see members of various teams. So often people like to know how many people are on the webinar. On the back end, on the panel, we've had more than 100 registrations for this webinar this morning, and it was by invite only. And we have close to 100 people that have dialed in this morning. So well done on that and welcome. I see there are members of the BAWAS team on board. There are members of the MFA team on board, people from the Multiwood office. And I've been told that there are customers of BAWAS that are on the line, as well as customers of Multiwood and MFA on the line. So predominantly people that operate in the space of furniture and appliances, and predominantly in the KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape regions of South Africa. So welcome from that part of the country. I'm currently based in Johannesburg, locked down in Pretoria, and I'm really excited to be able to speak to you guys because, and when I say guys, I mean guys and ladies. As most of you would know, I'm an extrovert, and the worst torture for an extrovert is probably to lock them down anywhere. So I was really excited when Yusuf and Hussein approached me to do a webinar for the Multiwood and BAWAS teams. So welcome. I'll start with a brief update on what's happening in the world with COVID. Then we'll do a little bit of a recap on some concepts that we have covered in our coaching processes. And then we'll talk about innovation and in the importance of innovation right now and some key characteristics of innovation before we go live back to our businesses in a week and a bit. And right at the back end, I will then hand you over to Yusuf Bucks for a few minutes to have a chat with us, and we will open up for questions and answers. If you have any questions or and would like some answers on those, Yusuf and I will field those on the back end of this. On your webinar platform, you have a questions option where you can type in a question and send it through. Clayton, our host, will then field those questions, and at the back end, he'll take 3 or 4 of them. So please don't feel shy. If there's something you'd like a bit of clarity on, if there's something you'd like a different perspective on, please send us a question. There's also a chat function on your webinar dashboard. So if you'd like to send us a comment or anything of that sort, something nice, please, because we like bucket fillers and not bucket dippers. So if you have something positive or something constructive to say, or if you have a valuable question you'd like to ask, please send it through either the question function or the chat function. So once again, welcome, and let's get going. So to date, globally, we find that there are more than 2.5 million cases of COVID around the world. That's people that have been tested and have come back with a positive result for a COVID test. So that doesn't mean that there are only 2.5 million people in the world with the COVID or the coronavirus. That means we have positively identified 2.5 million people around the world. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there have been more than 180,000 deaths the last few months that are COVID related globally. But what's important to note is that there's a statistic that shows that there are more than 700,000 people that have now recovered from the coronavirus. So it's not the end if somebody gets the coronavirus. Now, I'm going to share some of these stats because I truly believe in the whole concept of the power of positive energy and the bucket filling versus bucket dipping concept. Now, we all know that media sells through fear. So people, for some reason, like bad news, and they get more engrossed in information and news when the media shares bad news. And that's how they make money, and that's how they push information through. So if we look at countries around the world, and I've chosen 5 here, America so far has had 820,000 confirmed COVID cases so far. And they've had more than 45,000 people that have died with the coronavirus so far. Now, if we had to put it into perspective, America has a population of approximately 330 million people. Let's look at Italy. Italy that has a population size very similar to South Africa of about 60 million people. Italy has had 180,000 confirmed coronavirus cases, and they've had more than 25,000 deaths due to corona in a short period of time. If you look at Spain, Spain has a population slightly smaller than South Africa at about 46 million people. And they've had 200,000 positive corona cases and 21,000 deaths due to coronavirus the last few months. Now let's look at South Africa. South Africa has a population of between 57 and 60 million people. We have 3,500 confirmed coronavirus patients, and we've had 58 people that have passed away or died because of the coronavirus. So 3,500 sounds very little in relation to the size of our population, which is between 57 and 60 million people. But what we need to realize is that a number of things. The first one is that the coronavirus obviously arrived, or the first tests were or cases were found in South Africa early in March. So we're a little early on the curve. Secondly, we were still at the back end of summer, going into autumn, and the coronavirus spreads more rapidly during cold months and in winter. And thirdly, the rate at which testing is happening in South Africa is obviously less frequent, or there are less number of tests that have been conducted versus other countries in the world. So on the one end, I would like to caution people to say, please, let's be cautious and careful where we can. I've seen some pictures of traffic in KZN the last few days. It's as though, you know, things are back to normal when it's not. We need to really respect social distancing and the way we do things over the next few months, because once the lockdown is lifted, it's not going to be life as usual. The number of people with coronavirus will continue to increase through winter, and we need to be conscious of that. And therefore, we need to be innovative with how we approach our businesses going forward. Okay, so that being said, I think let's move into more of what we want to talk about today. And what we want to talk about today, we'll start with a discussion around where we found ourselves at the start of the coronavirus announcement and the start of lockdown. Now, initially, most people, and when I say most people, in excess of 95% of people in the population dived into what we call the fear zone. So if you look at the slide that's in front of you right now, it shows an awesome model put together by somebody in some part of South Africa, but I haven't been able to find the author. I'm still looking for the author because I think it's a brilliant model. So as we use this model, you'll see that in the fear zone, people started to grab food and toilet paper and medication that they didn't need. They started to spread emotions related to fear and anger. They were complaining frequently. They forwarded all of the messages that they received, whether it was fake news or whether it was real, as long as they received a message and they had some sort of an emotional feeling out of that message, they forwarded the message, and they were getting angry easily, and they were blaming each other, and people were blaming the employers, and employers were blaming landlords, and landlords were blaming tenants. And it was this, people were getting irritated because they were in this fear zone. And within that first week, we decided to have a webinar and pull people together and try to drive some positive energy into what was happening in our economy. And in that first webinar, many people were not aware of what we were trying to do, but what we were actually doing is we were pulling people out of the fear zone and pulling them into what we call the learning zone, which is the next circle. So in the learning zone, you'll see that people stopped wanting to, to take control of stuff that they had no control over. They stopped forwarding messages that were just fake news or irrelevant or negative information. They started to evaluate information. They started to think a little bit differently on what exactly was going on around them. So we pulled people into the learning zone quite quickly and out of the fear zone. So what we are doing today is we are pulling people out of the learning zone into the ultimate zone, which is the growth zone. Now, in the growth zone, we look at what are the talents that we actually have as people and as businesses. We look at new ways to deal with the current reality, because some people are saying, yeah, it's a difficult time, it's a difficult time. I'm saying it's a different time. It is a different time. It's a time that we've never experienced before. But we need to find ways to adapt and to adjust, and we are resilient as humans, and we need to find different ways to operate and to behave in this time of history, which I'm calling a different time. If we categorize it as difficult, that's all we will see. If we have the conscious awareness and categorize it as a different time in history, then we will find ways and solutions on how to work around where we find ourselves today. So from this, we're going to move into a space where we think about how we can run our businesses differently, because we find ourselves in a different time in history, right? So close to 100 people on the line. In fact, some people have dialed in more people, more than one person from a machine. So there are definitely more than 100 people that are listening to this discussion. By the end of this session, I would like for more than 100 people to have moved into this growth zone. And remember, when I train or when I coach for 4 reasons. I coach so that people can be better people for themselves. I coach so that people can be better people for the organizations that employ them, so that they can add more value to those organizations and create more jobs. The third reason I coach so that people can be better people for their families. And the fourth reason that I coach is so that people can be better people for the communities in which they find themselves, adding value in their communities, because it takes a village to raise a child. So as we move into the growth zone, it is my humble request that we take the people around us into the growth zone with us. And that's how each one, teach one, makes the world a better place. Cool. So a foundational slide that we will always talk about whenever we coach is a reminder for all of us. It's a reminder for the 100 people that are dialed into this webinar, and it's also a reminder for myself. We have found that there are only 2 types of people in the world. There are people that live their lives above the line, and there are people that live their lives below the line. People that live their lives above the line take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for everything that impacts their worlds. People that live their lives below the line blame, make excuses, and live in denial. Now, people that live their lives above the line, they are successful and powerful people. They energize people and teams around them. Now, if you look around you, look within your business circle, look within your social circle, and look at the people that you see are successful, and you will find that they take ownership, accountability, and responsibility for everything around them. If you look around you, many business owners right now that have been successful in business are going out and adding value in communities and handing out food parcels and trying to help people with water and from a medical perspective. And they're building old age homes, and they're building orphanages. And even though those scenarios were not created by them, they understand that it's a part of their communities, and they are taking ownership and accountability to add value and make a difference. Conversely, on the other side of the stick, you will find that there are people out there that are blaming the world around them. They have excuses for everything that goes wrong, And quite often you will find that they are in denial. They lie to themselves for so long that they actually start to believe it. And those people are powerless. It's like, oh, it's this coronavirus thing. I can't go to work. I can't do anything. I can't. Those people drain the energy out of other people and out of teams. Right now, we need to stay above the line. Every single one of us that's dialed into this webinar is categorized as a leader of some sort. And that is why you have been invited into this webinar. And as a leader, your leadership, your managers, your bosses are looking at you to say, we need your help so that together we can take ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And we can add value even in the middle of the situation in which we find ourselves. So as the economy opens up post the lockdown, we need you to remain positive. We need you to remain above the line so that together we can add value and make a difference. Secondly, another foundation slide that I always speak about is that some people are know-it-alls. They think they know everything. And in order to get the maximum out of life, you cannot be a know-it-all. You need to be a learn-it-all. So today I look forward to comments and questions because I learn through these comments and questions as well. For the people that thought that they knew it all, we could probably go to them right now for all the answers around Corona and COVID-19, but I can guarantee you that they don't have the answers. They pretended to be know-it-alls. So as we go through these learnings today, let us remember to be learn-it-alls. And how do adults learn? We learn through light bulb moments. So as we go through the session, we will have these moments where we go, oh, wow, I remember that now. Or why didn't I think of that? Or I didn't look at that before. Or I should look at that differently. And the moment you have a light bulb moment, it's like shifting the amount of knowledge that you have in your mind. You grow to the next level. I want you to write those down. Write down your light bulb moments so that you etch them into your brain and we can use them to add value beyond ourselves. So today you can expect some light bulb moments. Okay, so let's do a quick recap. We've spoken about and conversations previously, where we say we need to have good work and family and fun. It's not a matter of is it work or family, or is it work or fun? It can be work and family and fun, because I don't believe in all conversations. It's one or the other. I truly believe that we can have one and the other. We can have a fantastic career and a fantastic social life. It's also an and conversation, because when we have a fantastic career, it enables us to be positive, energized, also earn an income that will enable us to have a good social life. Now, those are the two that we've spoken about before. I would like to add a new one in today. We need to stay safe, and we need to stay healthy, and we need to get our businesses going post-lockdown. So when the economy opens, we need to stay safe. Yes, we don't want to get sick. We need to stay healthy. And we need to focus on those businesses that put money into our bank accounts or put money on our tables so that we can provide food and education for our families. If those businesses remain closed, or if those businesses do not get out of the blocks quickly and start to be profitable, the reality is it will impact our health and safety, because as those businesses shrink or close, we won't have work anymore. So we need to really focus on getting our businesses going post-COVID, because it is an and conversation. We will stay healthy, we will stay safe, we will take the precautions that are needed, and we will find innovative ways of getting our businesses going again. As part of a recap, right now, it's more important for us to be effective than ever before. So when I did the last leader development seminar in Port Shepstone and the last leadership seminar in Ladysmith, one of the things that we spoke of was the 7 habits of highly effective people. So right now we can choose to be above the line and be positive, successful people. And those people you will find follow these 7 habits in some way or form. And this is exactly what we need right now from every leader in every organization in this country. So let's recap on what are these 7 habits of highly effective people that we are going to continue to practice over the next few weeks and months. The first habit of highly effective people by Stephen Covey is to be proactive. So as you can see right now, your leadership in your organizations at Multi-Furnish and Appliances, Multiwood and Bowers are being proactive. They are proactively setting up ways to re-energize people and teams because your business owners and the leaders of your organizations want to get going so that the businesses can continue to grow post the lockdown so that people can stay employed. They are being proactive by setting up these webinars and getting people to think differently. We need for the team on this webinar to do that as well. Every single person needs to be proactive right now. What can you do differently? What can you do right now that will add value next week and next month? That's how we need to be thinking. We need to be proactive. We need to be consciously thinking of ways that we can do business in this different time. Habit number 2 of highly effective people, you need to begin with the end in mind. What is the end in mind right now? The end in mind right now is staying safe, staying healthy, and getting our businesses going. So the business has certain budgets for this year. And in order for the businesses to stay alive right now and in 2020 to provide the employment that's required for the South African economy, there are certain things that need to happen so that we can get as close to our budget targets for 2020 as possible. That right now is the end in mind. How do we stay safe and healthy and achieve the budgets and targets for 2020? We need to start with that end in mind. As the high-level leadership in the organizations that are dialed in today, you guys need to get together and re-strategize and understand what do those numbers look like? What does that end in mind for 2020 look like? And we need to regroup and work towards those. Habit number 3, put first things first. This is just a very fancy way of Stephen Covey saying, prioritize accordingly. This is about priorities. We know right now that the world changed quite quickly in March. We need to re-strategize and we need to reprioritize. Now, often we find that we procrastinate, we delay or we put off things that are quite important right now because they are difficult. We need to reassess priorities and we need to prioritize right now that the most important things are put first and things that can happen later are scheduled for later. So we need to do that as businesses, but we need to do that as individual people as well. So habit number 3, prioritization. Habit number 4, we need to think win-win. We need to think win-win. What are those win-win scenarios right now? How can we add value and make a difference and keep our businesses alive during this tough or this different time? Number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is a fancy way of saying clear communication is critical right now. Highly effective people communicate clearly. Communication has 2 parts. It's the listening component where you listen to and understand what is expected and required. And the other component is being able to clearly articulate or tell people what is happening and what needs to happen and what the plan is. So number 5, clear communication is critical right now. Number 6, synergize. This webinar today is a brilliant example of synergy. You have MFA Multiwood, you have with Bowers, Jamal Sahib, the business coach, together with many customers of Multiwood and Bowers, many employees of these organizations, we are synergizing and we are coming together with what we call abundance thinking mentality. Because together, as we energize each other and we energize each other's businesses and we add value in each other's worlds, we will be able to be a step ahead of the competition post this. So when we get going out of the blocks, we support each other, we become pillars to each other, and through that process, we get an ecosystem going and we get the economy going again. So synergy right now between employees is critically important. Between employees and leadership, between leadership and employees, between different businesses, between suppliers and customers, synergy right now is key to success. And finally, sharpening your sword. Now, sharpening your sword, there's different components to this. It means, how do you train your mind right now? How do you grow? What books are you reading? What conversations are you having? What webinars are you attending? Right now is a really great time because we're not spending time in traffic and extended hours in the office. We may have an hour or two a day to spend on development. So this webinar is an example also of sharpening your sword. So we've covered this previously in seminars in your different towns. This is a recap. We need to remember and write down, these are the 7 habits of highly effective people. If we implement these right now and continue to do these practices, the chances of success for us as individuals and the chances of success for the organizations that employ us or that we run are higher. Okay, so now that we are a little bit revved up, we can start to talk about innovation. Now, Thomas Edison once said, he said, there's always a better way to do it, or there's a way to do it better. We just need to find it, right? So if you look at a simple example of the yellow cab taxi, in the movies you'd see in New York, a guy runs on the street and the taxi just stops before it knocks him. The yellow cab taxis were around for many, many years, and they were an innovation at the time, because it became a way of people being transported from one place to another place without using their own car and having to look for parking, and it was a way to reduce congestion and stuff in New York. But if you look in the late 2000s, around 2008, 2009, I think that's where it came about, or was it around 2009, 2010? That's where Uber came alive. Now, Uber was an innovation within the taxi industry. So there was a way to do it, which was yellow cab taxis, and in South Africa, these quantums. And the better way to do it then became Uber, and through technology and an app, we found a different way for transport of people. Similarly, Airbnb is a type of innovation. So there was a way to book accommodation, and there was an innovation where we found easier and better, more cost-effective ways to do it through technology. So if you look and you ask yourself, so the question was asked to thousands of people, why don't you innovate, right? Why didn't we innovate previously? And these answers were categorized and grouped, and they found that they could be simplified into the following 7 answers. And most often when people were asked, why don't you innovate? They would reply and say, well, we don't really have the time or money to waste on unproven ideas. Or they would say things like, why risk it when we are doing fine right now in our businesses? Or they'd say things like, I can't innovate with those marketing bohemians that are in the room. Well, there's no room anymore because we are in lockdown or social distancing. So if I look at all 7 of these reasons, and I've gone through them in detail, all 7 of them are not relevant anymore. Because right now we are not doing fine. Our businesses are closed. So we are not risking it by innovating. We have the time and resources to innovate right now. So every reason that we would usually find to not innovate is now not relevant anymore. Therefore, we need to shift the game. We need to do things differently. We need to innovate right now. So what is innovation? Innovation happens when someone improves, they improve on or make a significant contribution or change to something that has already been invented. So there needs to have something that's already invented in some way or form. When we shift the way we use that product or service to a different level, that's actually an innovation. So innovation has a component of creativity, and then there needs to be a component of commercialization. Because if it's just creative and it doesn't hit the world or businesses, then it wasn't really a usable innovation. It needs to add value and make a difference in some way or form. So if you look at online shopping, for example, shopping existed and the internet existed, and somebody was creative and they found a way to commercialize online shopping, and therefore it was an innovation. There are 10 types of innovation. Now, as a coach, there's a difference between a consultant and a coach. A consultant comes in, does a piece of work and leaves. And the next time you want a piece of work done, you need to call a consultant in. They come in and they do a piece of work and they leave. In the coaching space, there's transfer of knowledge. A coach will come in, give a piece of information, ask some questions, answer a few questions, and hand that knowledge and information over to a team within an organization. The team in the organization then uses this knowledge and information to implement something different and a change. So in the coaching space, it's much more sustainable. So right now, this is a piece of information that I will share with teams that are on the phone. The leadership in those organizations need to take this information and implement it in each organization. So there are 10 types of innovation. These are the 10 types. You can have an innovation of a core process in your business. You can innovate the core process of your business. An example of that would be the core of a particular business may be furniture manufacturing. But over a period of time, we may innovate and change the core process to be assembly in that organization. So we've innovated a core process in a business. An example of an enabling process in a business may be the delivery of a product. So 25 years ago, if somebody owned a furniture store, they generally had a bakkie, and if somebody bought a piece of furniture, they would load that piece of furniture into the bakkie and deliver it. The delivery process is an enabling process for that business. Today, most companies or many companies have outsourced that delivery function. So they've made a negotiation or an agreement with SA Taxi or the Taxi Association, and the Taxi Association would then place bakkies outside that retail store. And if a customer bought a product from the furniture store, the delivery company would then charge a fixed rate of maybe 150 or 200 Rand and take that piece of furniture from the furniture store to the customer's house. So that is an innovation of an enabling process for that business. Now we can look at the 10 different types of innovation. So we've spoken of 2 of them. Your business model may be a type of innovation you would like to focus on. So I'd use a different example here. My business model as a business coach is I did one-to-one business coaching with business owners and their leadership teams, where I'd spend an hour a week with a business owner, but that was predominantly targeted in Gauteng because I'm based in Gauteng. And the second product offering that I offered was leader development seminars, where I'd spend a day running a leadership seminar anywhere in the country. So from Queenstown to Ladysmith to the Western Cape. Right now, I am busy with an innovation of my business model, and I'm including a one-to-one coaching offering for business owners and business leaders that are in different provinces. Because right now the world has changed and people are more willing to dial into Skype meetings and to Zoom meetings. And I can now coach a business owner one-to-one weekly, or a business leader in an organization one-to-one weekly, even if they are sitting in Newcastle or if they are sitting in Hof Other, right? So that's a business model innovation that we are currently busy with. I would like to hand this over to each business leader in each division and you guys need to go through this and find ways to innovate in each of these 10 parts of your business. So I'll go into a little bit more detail into a few of them, just to give you examples of what are some of the things that we'll look at. So let's look at innovating in process. So top left, dark blue wedge of this pie, it says innovation in process. So as I've mentioned, there are two types of processes. You have a core process in your business, and then you have an enabling process in your business. Now in this space, the operations team should look at what is our core offering as a business, map it out, write it down in a strategy session. Write it down, then decide what are the enabling processes for this core process. Then spend some time with the team to understand what innovations can be implemented for the core process of this business. For example, it might be the manufacturing of pine furniture. That is the core process. The enabling processes are related to supply of raw material, they're related to the type of equipment used when manufacturing this product. So the team would now need to sit to look at, in this current time that we find ourselves, how can we do it differently? Spend some time understanding that, because you may spend 3 or 4 hours understanding how you can modify a process, and the result of that is that you could cut out 10 or 20 hours a week of work time based on an innovation that you may implement right now. You may be able to innovate in finance. So right now you have a certain business model on how you generate revenue. The example I used earlier was one-to-one coaching versus seminars, and how I am currently innovating my business model and implementing a system where my target audience is not just people in Gauteng for one-to-one coaching and people in South Africa for seminars. My audience has changed to people anywhere in the country for both one-to-one coaching or seminars/webinars. Similarly, most businesses out there should be innovating right now from a payment methods perspective. Previously, companies only took cash. Now they can, over the last few years, they've looked at things like card machines and EFTs. We need to also be investigating online businesses right now. So yes, I know some of the guys on the line are busy with online stores. How do we pivot that and take it to the next level? How can we innovate right now to get it to market faster and harder? Those are some of the things that we need to look at as we unpack innovation within our businesses. So there are 4 stages to innovation. In the first stage or step 1 is the red wedge on the top right. It's called ideation, where you look at a process, or you look at a system, or you look at a product, and you come up with every single possible idea that you can think of on how you can innovate in that space. So this should be unrestricted, and you'll spend, for example, 30 to 60 minutes on it. And people shouldn't be restricted to realistic ideas. It should be pie in the sky stuff. Anything that could possibly be even thought of should come out as an idea in the ideation stage. Once that is done, after that 60-minute window is closed, the team will then spend 60 minutes looking through those ideas to try and understand which of those 10 or 15 ideas are possible out of the 40 or 50 ideas that have been generated. So you narrow it down and you bring it down to about 10 to 20% from the total number of ideas. So this is where you narrow them down, you identify valuable and viable ideas. So it's a structured process, right? In the third stage, you then create prototypes, and this takes longer than just an hour or 3. It might take a week or 3. Well, I think people have a little bit more time right now being social distancing and lockdown. So maybe within 3 or 4 days, we can come up with a prototype to test the product. And once we have a prototype and we are busy testing, we will decide from the 3 or 4 that we prototype, which one is the one that we will move forward with, and we do a full implementation. So innovation has a process cycle. And the process cycle takes depending on the idea that you're looking at, or the business product or the business process or the system that you're innovating, it could take anything from 1 day to 3 weeks to complete an innovation cycle, because you might need to build a website and there's coding, etc. involved. But we need to structure this within our businesses and find ways to innovate simple processes, right? So at store level, let's simplify this. At store level, what could be something we could look at to innovate? And I honestly think flyer distribution is something that we can innovate post-lockdown and post-COVID. So as a store manager, with your regional manager or your ops team that you work with, the team would need, and the marketing team perhaps, the team would need to sit down, and you can do this remotely, right? Through Zoom or through a Skype call, or through, in fact, even through WhatsApp video call. You can sit and unpack what is the current way that we distribute flyers. So from flyer design to flyer print to the couriering of the flyers to a store location to the distribution channel. Are we handing out at taxi ranks? Are we handing out in pension queues? Are we doing flyer drops using red dot branding, or, you know, what are those current mechanisms? And then what can be the way that we do this going forward? Because we're probably not going to find people standing in massive queues close to each other in pension queues. I'm not sure. Maybe it will still happen in some rural parts of South Africa, but in the bigger cities, I think there'll be restriction on that. People will be a little bit more scarcely scattered instead of more densely, you know, together. So we need to be innovating on what can we do to be more cost effective when we are handing out our flyers that will have a positive spin on our marketing, even though we're doing it differently. Another idea is typically in-store displays. Yes, we've done in-store displays in a way that worked before, but remember, the world has changed. So as at store level, how can we be more effective with our store displays? How are we doing our placements? Are we placing a lounge suite? Are we placing a carpet? Are we creating a lounge suite environment with some appliances, you know, to create that feel? But there's a next step. Are we then taking pictures of this, and are we photoshopping and doctoring them? Are we then using our social media platforms to share them effectively? I don't know, but what I do know is that teams now need to sit and find ways to innovate in this space, so that as the pie gets smaller and there are fewer people out there doing shopping, we catch more of that target market by being innovative and effective right now. At head office level, we should be innovating as well. And what are some of the things that we can be looking at? From the time an order is received from a customer or from a store, what is that process from that point when an order comes in, right up until the point where the customer receives their stock, an invoice and a statement? We should be innovating that process right now. So for leaders out there, there's a book called The Goal by Goldratt. The book is called The Goal, and it talks about processes and bottlenecks in processes and how processes can become more efficient when we move the bottleneck. Now, that's typically a theory that can be used as we unpack a process like this at head office level. So the guys out there that are on an operational level, you need to read that book. I'm more than willing to take a call. We can unpack some of the theory in that book, and you can use that as a basis to redraw up your system from order received right up until the customer received their goods and you receive your money. Okay. So that being said, I think the last two slides here speak about what are some of the requirements in order for an organization to be able to innovate. And two of the biggest ones are, the first one, what are the vision, mission, values of that organization? Because some organizations are entrenched in doing things the way they did them 100 years ago, right? However, I find that MFA and Bowers, Multiwood and Bowers, and myself, one of the values that we live within our organizations is the value of being innovative. Because I truly believe, and I'm sure Yusuf and Hussein believe this as well, we've had these conversations, organizations that do not innovate will die. So as a part of the values of your organizations, you guys are fortunate that your leaders in your organizations see innovation as a critical component of the vision, mission, and value of that business. So we tick off that box because it's a foundational requirement for innovation, and your organizations have that foundational requirement. The second foundational requirement for innovation is that there needs to be a level of trust within an organization. So the leadership team or the business owners, the higher level executive, the senior managers need to be able to trust the managers on the next level, so that when innovative initiatives come up, that these are discussed and unpacked, and that we create the environment for these to go forward. And I truly believe, having worked with many of you on this call and all of the organizations concerned, that that component of trust exists within your organizations, where there is that level of trust between senior leadership and managers in the organization. And now is the time that we need to build that trust to the next level, so that we can use this to continue to drive innovation in those organizations. Okay, and finally, there's an old way to do things and there's a new way. Innovation is about finding those new ways. So we don't just throw out the old ways. We look at the old ways and we learn from them, and we find better, newer ways to do that. So understand that many of the countries that we import from have had a shutdown for 2 to 3 months. Stock is now critical. If as an organization you have stock right now, but the fact that the exchange rate has gone through the roof, if you have stock right now, you are in a really good position. Now we need to use that as our advantage. Let's not throw our stock away. Let's use our stock cleverly to help us get through this time, because many of our competitors will run out of stock, and stock is king right now. So we can use this as a draw card. And then obviously retaining our customer base is critical right now. So let's find ways, innovative ways to work with our customers, whether it's B2B, business to business, or whether it's B2C in the retail space, business to customer. Let's retain our customers, because your best customer is your current customer. That's if they're paying. If your current customer is not paying, they're not a good customer. But obviously, in these times, we need to understand that payments may be slightly delayed, but if you have historically a great track record with a customer that always pays on time, that is your best customer. And you need to find ways right now to work with them, to enable them, and to maintain that relationship into the future. I would now like to hand you back over to Clayton. Clayton will hand us over to Yusuf, who will have a short conversation with us, and from there we'll field a few questions. Clayton, over to you.
Thanks, Jamal, and thanks for those inspiring steps. I think we've all learned a lot, especially in this difficult time. It's always good to hear from people who are thinking forward, making a difference. So I'm just going to get Yusuf back on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great privilege to introduce to you owner and CEO of MFA and Multiwood, Yusuf Bucks. Thank you, Yusuf, for allowing us to present this session today to your customers and to your staff. Yusuf, Jamal, over to you.
Hi, Clayton. Tell me, do you have any messages in the back end that we need to answer? Any questions that come through?
There aren't any questions right now. So yes, to our audience out there, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, please do feel free to post them for us.
Okay, Jamal, thank you. We all needed that inspiration. It was really good. You know, Jamal, whenever we do a seminar and first time a webinar with you, we always get such rich information, and it makes such a big difference to all of us, especially in our personal lives and in our businesses. Thank you very much for that. I would like to thank the team of Bawaz, Hussein, Hamza, Shaheen. Thank you to your team. You guys are absolutely amazing. Now is the time, especially more than ever before. Our companies need to work together to grow the trade between our two companies, and I can see some exponential growth, inshallah. To all the Multiwood, Coastal Bedding, and Lounge Light customers that have joined us today, guys, thank you very much for all your support. We really appreciate it. Jamal has touched a bit on the stock, but I would also like to emphasize on that the world has dried up in the last 2 or 3 months when it comes to manufacturing. And yes, we do have stock as a company. Prices have gone up, and it's not the end of the world. We will work with what we have, and we'll do the best that we can do. The rand is at 19, and as I said, it's not the end of the world. We will tailor-make deals for each one of our customers and prepare payment plans to the best of our ability. Now is a time more than ever before. We need to work together as teams. Thank you very much again to the Multiwood customers. To all the managers and team leaders at Multi Furniture and Multiwood, guys, thank you very much. It will not be possible to run this company without you guys. From the bottom of my heart, I would really like to thank you all. There's an old saying, when things get tough, the tough get going. We are a resilient company, and we have been through some tough times before. And we've come out of it a lot stronger. So we will come out of this a lot stronger than we went in, inshallah. And the only way to do this is by doing it together as a team, by having compassion and empathy for each another. Now is the time for us to demonstrate courage and bravery more than ever before. Guys, thank you very much. I really enjoyed everything. I'm sure all the people that have joined us today also had an extremely good time with us. Thank you very much, guys, and Clayton, back to you.
Thank you, Yusuf. It's Jamal again. So Clayton, before I wrap up, there's a couple of things that I'd like to say. I've had a few light bulb moments. Yusuf, thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure working with you guys, with your companies. You guys are an inspiration. Hussein, coming from around the corner from where I grew up, I think you guys have done phenomenal work in the Midlands area and in Northern Natal, so well done on that. You guys are creating jobs, you're creating opportunities, you're driving those economies, so well done to the both of you. You know, a light bulb moment that I had last night after I had put together most of this webinar, and this webinar was ready for today, the light bulb moment that I had was two things really. The first one is that organizations going forward will not be the same as the organization that went into this lockdown. So I am confident that many organizations, unfortunately, will reduce the size of their workforces post-COVID. It's a sad reality, but it will happen. Now, I think the only time that should happen is if we are looking at ways to optimize the organization so that we can exist in the future. And that's what will happen. So organizations will have one of two options. Option one, don't do anything, and within 3 to 6 months close down. Or option two, optimize and restructure organizations right now so that in 6 months' time, those organizations are profitable and can start to grow and re-employ people. And if those are the two options, then definitely the second option is the one that we need to look at. We need to look at every single cost in our organization right now and optimize. So that being said, organizations that went into lockdown with 100 employees are probably going to, within 2 or 3 months out of lockdown, have 70 to 80 employees. So these are some of the stats that I'm following across the globe. Countries like America, Singapore, China, even in the UAE, the stats are showing that there will be probably close to a 20 to 30% reduction in the size of a workforce post-COVID. Now, as business leaders, we need to understand that if we are going to have fewer people, we need to have those people more skilled, more synergized, and more effective, because the workload's not going to be less. We need to be more effective with the way that we do stuff. So we need to be continuously thinking on how do we build a stronger team, because we will have to do more with less people. So that's the first one. Right? We need to think about how do we do more with less people in our organizations so that our organizations can first survive and then thrive and then create employment again into the future by growing. And the only way to do that is through the development of people. That's the first one. The second one is looking at this attendee list. Every single person that has dialed into this webinar, and it's 103 now, works for an organization that operates in a space where a significant component of the revenue of that business comes in from social grant activity. Now, that being said, over the next 6 months, the president's speech, Cyril Ramaphosa last night indicated that they would increase the amount of money that would flow into the social grant system over the next 6 months. So that's a really good sign for the organizations that have dialed into this webinar. So people are always looking for doom and gloom. I'm always looking for opportunity and places where we can, add value and grow organizations. So I think, so the reality is everybody on the other end of this line needs to be ready to find ways to take, to take the opportunity to grow their revenue lines, because of the fact that there'll be another 150 billion rand entering the social grant economy over the next 6 months. So we need to be gearing for that. On the one end, reducing our expenses, reducing our overheads. And on the other end, we need to set our organizations up in such a way that we can try to find ways to maximize the value we can get out of the increased amount of spend that's entering the economy. So that, as my parting words, we have, they say, amongst every crisis lies an opportunity. So we need to find those opportunities as business leaders so that we can use those opportunities in the future to grow our businesses so that we can add value in our communities, we can add value in our employees' lives, and we can add value in our homes. Clayton, thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you for hosting us. Over to you.
So do we have time for 2 or 3 questions?
If you do have them, I'd like to take them.
Cool. So the one question is, well, there were 2 questions that are on the similar theme, and they are just with regards to staff. So companies are saying that their staff is currently not being paid, and what can they do to ensure that they don't lose their general staff confidence and trust during this time? And what can they do after the lockdown period when these staff come back to re-motivate their teams?
Okay, so if I may fill that one, there are 3 components to this conversation. There are 3, let's call it 3 interested parties. The one interested party is a landlord, and a landlord is in the business of earning revenue through rental income. The second interested party is a business that trades either a product or service, and that business earns revenue through being able to trade their product or service. And the third interested party in this is an employee, and an employee is in the business of earning a salary or wage through the business that's trading, right? So the reality is, so in my scenario where I run hardware stores, I'm a tenant in the hardware store. So I need to pay rent to a landlord. The landlord's in the business of earning revenue through rental income. I'm then allowed to trade in that space, and through trading, I generate revenue, and that's my revenue income. And in that process, I generate revenue that I use to then pay my employees, and my employees are in the business of earning a salary. Now, the reality is, right now, the loss needs to be shared because everybody will be impacted. Government has instructed for a shutdown of organizations. So the person sitting in the middle, the interested party in the middle, is the business owner that trades a product or a service. If there is no revenue coming into that organization, there is no money to pay a landlord and to pay staff. That's the long and the short of it. The income statement on the income line says 0. So if anything is being paid on the expense line, it goes into a negative immediately, right? So all 3 interested parties, unfortunately right now, are impacted. The business in the middle that trades immediately goes to a 0 revenue. The landlord that's in the business of collecting rent needs to understand that this burden was not created by the business owner that was trading a service or product. It was created by a higher force and was instructed by government. Therefore, the landlord cannot expect to receive full rent. Because if they did, I mean, where would the business owner find the money to pay it in the first place if there's no revenue generated? So the business owner trading takes a hit, there's impact. The business owner or the landlord that owns the property takes a hit and there's impact. And the employee who works in that organization, who's not now working in that organization, will feel an impact. So it's an impact three ways. We need to, within negotiation and seeing what's possible within each organization, find ways to look for a win-win. But it's actually not a win-win, it's really a shared loss. So government understands that SMEs cannot afford to pay employees if those organizations are not running. And therefore, government has put together what they call the TERS benefit, the Temporary Employment Relief Scheme, where they've poured a few billion in, and they're saying, okay, so if people are in lockdown, if employees are in lockdown, it means that their expenses come down significantly because they're not traveling, they should not be overspending, they aren't spending on partying, they've even closed all the pubs and the bottle stores, so people can't spend money on alcohol, you're not wasting money on cigarettes because you can't get a hold of that. You don't really need to phone people because you lock down, hopefully with the people that you usually communicate with. So your expenses immediately come down quite significantly. And as an employee, you would then need to do a negotiation with your bank if your property was bonded, the one that you're living in, and try and find ways to extend your payment terms with your bank. If you are renting rental space if you're a tenant renting, you would then need to come up with negotiation strategies with your landlord that would help you then spread the impact of your rent payments over a period of time. So yes, government has set up the UIF TERS benefit so that people can be paid some money so that they can buy food to survive. And it would then become a shared responsibility between employee, employer, and landlord to understand that everybody will lose in this process. So that's the first part of the question. The reality is there is no other way. It needs to be a shared loss between the three parties. The second part of the conversation is how do we keep employees motivated and how do we rebuild post-COVID? We need to have these conversations to get people to understand that this is a higher force that has instructed a shutdown of these organizations. We need to have these conversations. Communication is critically important right now. So we need to have these conversations that says, right now, these are the options, because the reality is if a company tries to pay salaries and rent right now in the middle of the lockdown without trading, within some companies won't even last 30 days and they will shut down. Others might make it to 60 days and some others might make it to 90 days if we're lucky. But it has become a cash flow, cash maintenance game. And we need to have those conversations with our key employees and we need to assist them where possible. And we need to find that win-win space. And we need to help people with the UIF TERS applications and where we can. And if people do have leave and if they are loyal employees and they've walked a long road with us and they're with us for 10, 15, 20 years, those staff, we can look at ways of putting them on, they use up some of their leave days and get paid for those. But we need to do that as business owners, understanding what the cash flow reserves look like and what cash flow is available. So conversation, communication is key. And I think that's the only way that we will continuously earn the trust of our employees, get them to understand the scenario, and then build the businesses post-lockdown and post-COVID.
Great, thanks for that, Jamal. And then Yusuf, just a question for you. So the guys are asking whether you would be willing to sit down with senior management and managers to go through some of these ideas and unpack some innovation ideas with them, is the first question. And the second question is just with regards to, is there a possibility to create an app for the individual businesses as well as perhaps one with yours that showcases all the products that are available, and how can they continue to use social media to continuously market to existing customers and show that they're still around and relevant?
So yes, definitely. We will definitely, via all our channels with our area managers, our assistant managers, our ops managers, sit with all the different managers from the different branches, and we will look at all options that are available to simplify everything and to make sure that we can innovate in every single space that Jamal has spoken about. So we will be looking at all options. We will have the entire team on the table, and we will definitely pick it up from there. The second one was a question on an app. Okay, so we haven't been working on an app, but since the question came through, we will definitely look at it. In terms of our marketing space right now, we will be launching a new website in the next 3 months or so. We have a deadline to go online, multi-furniture online by the end of this year, which I'm sure we're going to make the target. And look, all the social media platforms are working quite strong for us right now. And if there's any particular customer that needs any other information regarding our stock, please contact us, and we will definitely be gladly willing to share all our information.
Cool, thank you, Yusuf. Yeah, the others are just comments to say thank you so much. It's really meant a lot, especially around growth and sharpening their saws. Jamal, inspirational as always. Yusuf, thank you. Everybody, good luck on your businesses. Stay strong during this time. We're going to wrap up with that. And yeah, stay strong, stay safe, stay at home, and keep motivating and moving forward. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.